मेरा नहीं है।
अच्छा, आप नहीं हैं?
कोई और स्टूडेंट्स आएंगे हमारे साथ आएंगे
कोई बात नहीं, जो भी है।
नेक्स्ट वीक।
आज तो शायद 9 बजे का भी क्लास है ना?
शायद हो गया ना, इसलिए तो मैं
आज किसका है? यानी आज मैंने शेड्यूल भी नहीं देखा ना। क्या मैम टॉपिक? हाँ जी,
ये ऊपर वाला ही है,
ठीक।
इसी से कर लें।
हाँ जी, डायरेक्ट।
हमारे बच्चे कहाँ पे?
बच्चे इधर आएंगे। अभी लॉगिन करेंगे, वो बच्चे में लॉगिन नहीं है। आप स्टार्ट कर दीजिए, वो आ जाते हैं।
कैसे पता चलेगा कि लोग है
वो
नहीं है?
मेरे को फोन आ जाता है उनका।
अच्छा।
जैसे वो
तो कोई टू वे कम्युनिकेशन नहीं है?
नहीं,
तो
टू वे
उसकी आवाज़ कैसे सुनूँ मैं?
आप मैडम को बात कर लेना। मैं टू वे वाला जूम पे करा दूँगा, आप रूम से बैठ के कर सकते। ये तो वही है, सिंगल है। आपका वीडियो उधर जा रहा है बस। ठीक है, कमाल।
Good morning everyone. Today we will talk on ethics in animal as well as human research. So why this ethics in research have come up? Why we need ethics in research? What has happened in the history? So that is important because the ethics was required to be implemented by law because of certain things which has happened, unethical thing which has happened in the history. For example, the human experiments by the Nazi German doctors, the Nuremberg trial, which led to the formation of the Nuremberg Code and Declaration of Helsinki. And also we started to look for alternatives to human research, that is animal research. So what is ethics? Ethics is a Greek word, ethos, meaning custom or character. It is a subject that deals with values, principles, beliefs and opinion. It is not a natural science but a creation of the human mind. It is open to influence of time, place and situation. So what is ethical right now may change a bit later on in another 15, 20, 30 years. So it is a framework to determine what is right and wrong regarding human action, character and behavior. So it is a framework to determine what is right and wrong. So briefly we will talk little bit about ethics in animal research first, because we also start with the animal experiments or animal research. So according to CPCSA, which is a committee for the purpose of control and supervision of experiments in animals, animal is any living creature other than a human being. So why animal ethics? Because we want to maintain welfare of the animals. So in animal experiments we take animal ethics as almost equivalent to animal welfare. So how can we maintain animal welfare? According to the World Health Organization for Animal Health, it recognizes 5 freedoms which are required to maintain animal health or welfare or animal ethics. This include freedom from thirst and hunger, like the animals should not be subjected to extreme thirst and hunger, from discomfort, freedom from pain, injury and disease as far as possible, freedom from fear and stress, and to freedom to express a normal behavior in the animals. So in India, the government welfare formulated various regulatory bodies and societies for animal welfare. The regulatory bodies include the Committee for the Purpose of Control and Supervision of Experiments on Animals, which we commonly call as CPCSA. This is a very important body in India which regulates the animal experiments in our country. And then we have the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee. For example, in our institute also we have the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee, which will regulate all the animal experiments happening in our institute. So all of us, we have to take the approval from the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee before we can start any research even on animals. There are certain other societies like People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, which we commonly call PETA, and Pet Animal Welfare Society, which is known as POS. So these are some of the societies which run for the welfare of the animals. So the National Center for Replacement, Refinement and Reduction of Animal Research, they have formulated a concept of 3 R's, which is replacement. as far as possible, if you can replace animals with some other in vitro, in vivo experiments, so you should try to replace. You should refine the experiment. Suppose we conduct an experiment on analgesic, then we should refine the pain-giving procedures or the reduction. The third R is reduction. That means we have to reduce the number required for animals. We should use the minimum number of required for the animal experiments and not use more than the required number of the animals in any animal research. And now the concept of 4R, that is the reuse and rehabilitation. As far after the experiments, we used to euthanize the animals and sacrifice them. But as far as possible, there has been concept of 4R, which is reuse and rehabilitate. If you can reuse the same animals after a gap of withdrawal period of about 2 weeks or 1 month, and rehabilitation of the animals should be done as far as possible. So these are the concepts of 4Rs in animal experiments: replace, refine, reduce, and reuse and rehabilitate. So from whom the approval of animal experimentation is required? For most small animals, for instance, we carry an experiments on rats, mice, guinea pigs or rabbits, the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee approval is enough. But for larger animals, we need approval from the CPCSEA. And if you are using biohazardous substance, we need approval from the Institutional Bioethics Committee, Biosafety Committee. So these are the approvals. So in our institute, we take approval from the Institutional Animal Ethics Committee, because most of us, we are conducting research on the smaller animals like mice, rats, guinea pigs or rabbits. So that was briefly about the animal experiments. Now we come to the role of ethics in clinical research, which is a more important part of the lecture. So why ethics? This is for protecting the dignity, rights, safety and well-being of the research participants. So initially we used to call them as research subjects, but now the broad term participants have been used, and we want to protect the dignity, the rights, safety as well as the well-being of the research participants, and we should minimize the possibility of exploitation, and we should ensure that the rights and welfare of the subjects are respected. So indirectly looks after the integrity and credibility of the scientific data and the trial results. So if a trial is conducted ethically, that means the data is more credible, and it also ensures harmonization and with international scenario. So if a clinical research is being conducted properly, then it ensures harmonization with the international standards. So there are three dimensions in practice and research. First is the human rights. We have to protect the human rights, and then the ethical aspects, like we have to take ethical aspects into consideration while conducting any research, and the scientific and technical content is also very important in case of clinical research. Like before giving ethical approval, we have also see the technical as well as the scientific content of the protocols. So the four principles of ethics in research are the non-maleficence. That means first, do no harm. No harm to the participants. So whenever possible, you should not do any harm. The trial or the research should not cause any harm to the participant. Second principle is beneficence. There should be maximum benefit. The participants should at least get some benefit out of participating in the trial. Autonomy, freedom to take a decision. Freedom to take a decision whether to participate or not to participate in the research, or if they can enroll into the research, freedom to withdraw from the research at any point of time. And justice is fair treatment. All the study participants should be subjected to fair treatment in any research. So autonomy is individual decision making. Treat subjects as autonomous individual. They have the freedom to decide whatever they want to do. Beneficence is moral obligation to act for the benefit of others. That means the participants should be benefited at least, if not no harm should be done, and try to benefit from participation in the trial. Non-maleficence means obligation not to inflict harm on others. That means primum non nocere. That means first, do no harm. And justice is distribution of all rights and responsibilities in the society. So coming to a brief history of evolution of ethics in biomedical research, in the 1940s, the German physicians did research on German prisoners of war. So without any ethical approval, or they were forced to participate in the biomedical research without any informed consent, without their consent. And so it led to the generation of the Nuremberg Code. In the 1960s, the thalidomide was given to pregnant ladies for their nausea and vomiting, morning sickness, and it led to the thalidomide tragedy. The children, the fetuses born were with phocomelia, and so it led to the declaration, Helsinki Declaration, and then we have the international guidelines for biomedical research involving human subjects. In 1997, the International Conference on Harmonization developed the GCP guidelines, Good Clinical Practice Guidelines. So all clinical research these days have to follow the GCP guidelines. We have to conduct the research as per the GCP, Good Clinical Practice Guidelines. And India also we have the ICMR guidelines, which have been revised and updated in several years, 1998, 2006 and 17. The CDSCO developed Schedule Y for clinical trials in 2005, and we have the new clinical trials rule, which was developed by CDSCO in 2019. So a brief history about the Nuremberg Code. It is the first international code relating to research ethics. It is a consequence of the Nazi war crimes during World War II. So in this, the voluntary consent was not taken from the prisoners of war, and so in the Nuremberg Code it was declared that voluntary consent is essential for ethics. We have to anticipate the scientific benefits. The benefits should outweigh the risks to the participants, and there should be ability of the subject to terminate participation at any point of time. So these are the principles of the Nuremberg Code of 1947. It is designed to protect the integrity of the research subjects, and it delineated conditions for ethical conduct of research involving human subjects. So this was the first principle of ethics in clinical research. So in Nuremberg Code, the gist is that there should be voluntary consent, there should be scientific benefit, the benefits to outweigh the risks. As far as possible, the animal experimentations should be conducted first, and you should avoid suffering to the participants. There should be no intentional death or disability to the study participants, and there should be protection from harm, and there should be a qualified investigator to conduct the research. The investigator should be qualified and well trained to conduct the research, and the subject should have the ability to withdraw from the study at any time of the trial, and you should stop the trial if any harm is reported or occurs. A brief history of the Tuskegee syphilis study. In this study, the researchers wanted to study the natural course of the disease, that is syphilis, and so certain patients were denied the treatment which was already available. The penicillin was already available at that time, but they were not given treatment because they were just given enrolled under the false impression that free treatment is being provided to them. So many patients were denied the treatment though it was available, and many patients died during this study. So the Declaration of Helsinki, it says that it is the duty of the physician in medical research to protect the life, health, privacy and dignity of the human participants or the subjects. So there is a concern for the interests of the human subjects must always prevail over the interests of science and society. So the participants should come first, the subjects should come first, and their interests should always prevail over the interests of the science and society in general. The Belmont report, it was established the requirement of institutional review board or ethical review committee, and it has 4 basic ethical principles. Non-maleficence, that means first do no harm. Beneficence, it should benefit the participants. Respect for persons should be there, and justice should be there. There should be fair treatment. So the Belmont report came into being in 1979. So the respect for persons, that means individual autonomy should be there. Self-determination by capable individuals to participate or not to participate, and the right to be left alone if the need arises. And there should also be protection of individuals with reduced autonomy. That means persons' security of harm for vulnerable individuals. The individuals with reduced autonomy, they are also called as vulnerable participants or vulnerable subjects. We will be coming to who are the vulnerable individuals later on. Beneficence, that means there should be some benefit. In healthcare, an obligation to improve health, and in research, it may be an obligation to maximize the benefits or minimize the harm. So the beneficence is the second principle of Belmont report. The risk should be reasonable when weighed against expected benefits, and research design should be sound. Investigators should be competent and safeguard the welfare of the participants on the trial. There should be justice, that is fairness in distribution of burdens and benefits in both the arms or in all the study arms. The protection for the rights and welfare of the vulnerable subjects should be there, and research should leave low resource communities or countries better off, or at least not worse off. That means the vulnerable communities should be taken care of. So in ethics, in biomedical research, the rights of the human subjects to understand the nature of the research should be there. The risks and benefit involved should be well understood by the participant, and they have the right to agree or not to agree to participate. This must be clear to the participants. So there are two basic principles of ethics: the ethics committee and the informed consent. So the ethics committee also takes into consideration the welfare and of the study participants, and the informed consent is very important for the rights of the study participants. So all proposals on biomedical research involving human subjects must be cleared by an ethics committee. So we cannot start any proposal or clinical research or biomedical research both involving human subjects as well as animal subjects. It has to be cleared by the ethics committee. Not only human subjects, even animal experiments have to be cleared by the ethics committee before we start the research. So what is ethics committee? It is a board or a committee formally designated by an institution to review, to approve the initiation and to conduct periodic review of biomedical research involving humans as well as animals. So it has to be multidisciplinary, it has to be independent and competent. The ethics committee should be independent, in the sense it should not be under the influence of anybody, and it should be competent to decide whether the research, the proposal which has come for review is good enough, or it has taken into consideration all the basic, four principles of ethics. So the composition of ethics committee is multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral. It has to have multidisciplinary people, that means from all the disciplines, and multi-sectoral from different sections of the society. There should be adequate representation of age and gender. So in ethics committee we have to have ladies representative also. Preferably 50% of the members should be non-affiliated or outside the institute. It is in case of institutional ethics committee, at least around 50% of the members should be from outside the institute. The number of the members should preferably between 7 to 15. Why? Because we have to complete the quorum for every meeting, and so it should be from between 7 to 15, because we want the quorum to be at least 5, and so if we keep less than 7, then sometimes it is difficult to complete the quorum. It is up to 15 because we do not want many members, and so it is very difficult to come to a consensus if there are more members. The chairperson of the committee should be from outside the institute. Normally in ethics committee, the chairperson is from outside the institute and the member secretary is from the same institute. For instance, for AIIMS, we have the member secretary from the institute, whereas the chairperson for both animal as well as human research is from outside the institute. Other members should be a mix of medical or non-medical, particularly in case of clinical research, scientific and non-scientific persons, including lay public, to reflect different viewpoints. So we also have lay public to reflect their viewpoints in the ethics committee. So the composition may be as follows: chairperson, 1 to 2 basic medical scientists, preferably we have 1 pharmacologist because pharmacologists conduct a lot of medical research, 1 to 2 clinicians from various institutes, 1 legal expert or retired judge to have the legal aspect of the proposal, 1 social scientist or representative of NGO, 1 philosopher, ethicist or theologian, 1 lay person from the community, and a member secretary, which is normally from the institute. So these are the normal composition of the ethics committee. There may be 1 or 2 variations in certain places. So the quorum requirements for ethics committee meetings is that a minimum of 5 members should be present in the meeting room, and quorum should include both medical, non-medical members. Minimum 1 non-affiliated member should be part of the quorum. That means 1 outside member should be present in the quorum. Preferably a lay person should be also a part of the quorum, and no decision is on the ethics committee approval is valid without fulfillment of the quorum. The meeting cannot happen if the quorum is not completed. So what are the responsibilities of the institutional ethics committee? It has to protect the subject rights, safety and well-being. So first of all, we have to see the subject first before the proposal. So we have to see that the rights, safety and the well-being of the subjects are, or the study participants are protected. Special protection to vulnerable subjects. Vulnerable subjects are very important because they are under certain pressure, or they are not capable of having a sound mind. So we have to have special protection. We have to see that they are protected, the vulnerable subjects. The review should be competent. That's why the ethics committee has to be competent, free from any bias or influence. They should be independent. They should not be under any influence or any bias, and ensures scientific soundness of the proposals, there should be risk minimization and precaution, and there should be regular monitoring of the study. Even after the approval has been given, they should follow the regulations and maintain ethical values. So, and there should be education of the research community as well. So, one important component of research is the informed consent. Whenever we research involving humans, this informed consent is a very important part of the study. So, informed consent is a decision to participate in research taken by a competent individual who has received the necessary information, who has adequately understood. Informed, it is not just a consent, it is informed. The participants should have adequately understood the information which you are providing, and who, after considering the information, has arrived at a decision without having been subject to coercion, undue influence or inducement or intimidation. So any participant should not be subject to any coercion or any force, undue influence or inducement. You should not induce the study participants to participate in the trial, or the participants should not be intimidated. So they should be free from all this coercion, undue influence or inducement, whether they participate in the trial or not, and they should have all the necessary information, and they should have adequately understood the information. So this is the basic principle of informed consent. So this informed consent is a very important part of trials. So what happens in informed consent is the process. So the informed consent process protects the individual's autonomy to freely choose whether or not to participate in the trial or the research. There are three components: providing relevant information to the potential participants. So the information should be relevant. Like, you should not hide any information to the participants. You should ensure that the information is comprehended by them. They have understood the information given correctly, and you should assure voluntariness of participation, that the study participants are participating voluntarily. They are not under any undue influence or coercion or inducement. So there is informed consent document which is reviewed and approved by the ethics committee. So whenever you give a proposal for ethics committee approval, you have to have the informed consent document which has the participant information sheet and the informed consent form. So the participant information sheet contains details about the study as well as the information to the participant, and the informed consent form which is signed by the study participant as well as the investigator and the witnesses. So it is the primary responsibility of the investigator to obtain in return informed consent of the prospective participant, and when participant is not capable of giving informed consent, we have to take the consent of the legally acceptable or authorized representative, commonly known as LAR. So we have to obtain consent from the LAR, legally acceptable or authorized representative. And if the participant or LAR is illiterate, a literate impartial witness should be present during the informed consent process. So these are very important part of informed consent document. So either if the participant is not able to give informed consent, then we have to take consent of LAR, legally acceptable or authorized representative, and if they are illiterate, then we have to take an literate impartial witness. So who can be a legally acceptable representative? A person who will give consent on behalf of a prospective participant who for either legal or medical reasons is unable to give consent himself or herself to participate in research or to undergo diagnostic, therapeutic or preventive procedure as per research protocol duly approved by the ethics committee. So what are the impediments to the informed consent process? First is the language. So we have to take informed consent is in a vernacular language. That means the participants should understand the language that we are speaking to them. There should be comprehension. That means they should be able to understand the process. There should be gender bias issues should be resolved, and adequate time should be given for the informed consent to be understood and comprehended. So these are the impediments: language, comprehension, gender-based issues, and adequate time. These are the impediments to the informed consent process. So the general ethical principles will consist of the informed consent process. It should be a proper documented informed consent should be there. Compensation or remuneration for participation should be clearly chalked out in the protocol. Special groups as research subjects should be taken into consideration. Essential information on confidentiality, particularly for HIV trials, for psychiatric trials. So this information on confidentiality should be there. Compensation for accidental injury should be there in the protocol, and international collaboration, if so they are there, and relations with media or publication practices should also be there in the research protocol. So who are the vulnerable groups? One very important vulnerable group are the mentally ill patients or the uneducated because they are not able to understand your procedure. The employee, suppose I am conducting and the research, the staff under me may be a vulnerable group because they may think that if I refuse participation in the trial, I may be subject to bias. The institutionalized subjects, for example, the school children, if we approach the principal and ask the school children to participate, they may not be able to say no. The pregnant females, because we are putting the fetus at harm. The tribal, the prisoners of war or prisoners in general, children because their ability to understand is not comprehended, the military, the students, the poor patients, because they think that if they participate in trial, there may be inducement. Like for example, we have to give some partial payment to compensate the cost of coming and commuting. So that may act as an inducement, the age factor, and even the disease. Sometimes the disease patients or the condition, the disease patients feel that if they participate in the trial, they may be subject to better treatment options. So these are some of the vulnerable groups, and we have to take special precautions while recruiting all such patients in a trial or a study. So for women participants, we have to have proper justification to the EC or ethics committee for inclusion of pregnant and nursing women in clinical trials. Though most of the trials do not allow, but certain instances may require inclusion of pregnant and nursing women, so we have to have proper justification. Women in the reproductive age should be informed of potential risks to the fetus if they are become pregnant, and should be asked to use an effective contraceptive method and be told about the available options in case of failure of contraception. So all these things should be taken care when a woman participates in a study. Child participant, there should be proper justification to the EC for inclusion of child in clinical trials or research studies. Research generally permitted if safety is established in adult population or if information likely to be generated cannot be obtained by other means. For example, any study where you want information only for children and it cannot be obtained by any other means, even if you include adults. So in that case, we may need to include children in the trial, and EC should determine if consent of one or both parents would be required before a child would be enrolled. So in certain conditions, we will require consent from both the parents. In certain conditions, consent from one parent will be enough when we enroll a child participant in a research study. So consent from one parent or legally acceptable representative may be considered sufficient when, for research involving no more than minimal risks and others or that offers direct benefit to the child. So when the research involves no more than minimal harm or risks or that offers direct benefit, then only one parent's signature or consent may be enough. If the other parent is deceased, unknown, incompetent, or not reasonably available. So if the child is only one parent, then also consent from one parent is enough or sufficient, and only when only one parent has legal responsibility for the care and custody of child irrespective of the risks involved. So in case of divorce or something, so if only one parent has a legal responsibility irrespective of the risks, only one parent can give consent. So consent from both parents may have to be obtained when research involves more than minimal risks or offers no benefit to the child. So in such a case, we have to take consent from both the parents. So the protocol should include a parent or LAR information sheet in case of studies which involve child participant. Specific aspects relevant to child, such as effects on growth and development, psychological well-being and school attendance, have to be described in the patient information sheet. And children with developmental disorders, like patients, like in this case, the parents are very vulnerable to therapeutic misconception, and potential benefits and risks must be carefully explained to the parents. So such cases should be taken care of when you enroll children in the study. Research involving institutionalized children would require assent of the child, consent of the parent or the legally acceptable representative, and permission of the relevant institutional authorities. For example, research in a school setting, the child, the parents, principal or management may be involved. So from all these three people, we have to take the informed consent. So when you take from the consent from the child, it is called assent, and then we have to have consent from the parents or LAR. What is assent? Assent is a child's agreement to participate in research. So language of assent form must be consistent with the cognitive, social and emotional status of the child, and points to be included in the assent form include an explanation about the study and how it will help the child, an explanation of what will be done in the study, including a description of any discomfort that the child is likely to feel. For example, if you have to withdraw some blood, you have to explain to the child that there will be some pricking and blood has to be withdrawn. Contact information of the person whom the child can approach if he needs an explanation. Sometimes the child may not be comfortable while you explain, so he may need his mother, father or somebody with whom he is comfortable so that he can be explained better. And a paragraph emphasizing that the child can refuse to participate in study, and if he or she chooses to do so, treatment at the center will not be compromised, or he will not be under biased condition if he is in an institution. So all this should be emphasized while taking assent from the child. So assent is taken from whom? Assent is taken from children between 7 to 12 years. So it can be verbal or oral assent, must be obtained in the presence of parents or legally acceptable or representative, and it should be recorded. So whenever you are taking an assent, it should be recorded. In case of children less than 7 years of age, it is not required, no assent is required, because we think that they are not able to comprehend that much, and so a consent is enough. But between 7 to 12 years, we have to take assent, written or verbal, oral or verbal, and between 12 and 18 years, written assent must be obtained, and parents and LAR representatives should also sign the assent form. So between 12 to 18 years, the adolescent children, we have to take both written assent as well as consent from the LAR or the parents. So consent of parents should be obtained in any of all these cases when we take assent from the children. So who are the vulnerable population? Examples are poor and illiterate person, because they are socially, economically and politically disadvantaged, and therefore they are susceptible to being exploited. If you give them some money, maybe they will be willing to participate in the study. Children, as I have already told you, they are incapable of making a voluntary informed decision for themselves, or whose autonomy is compromised temporarily or permanently. Prisoners, they are able to give consent, but whose voluntariness or understanding is compromised due to their situational conditions. And terminally ill patients, they are unduly influenced either by expectation of the benefits or fear of retaliation in case of refusal to participate. So many patients, they have the fear of retaliation by the physician in case of refusal to participate. So they are also called vulnerable population. So we should explain to them, particularly the patients population, that their treatment will not be compromised even if they refuse to participate in the trial. The Belmont report and informed consent. So information, what all information? So all information should be provided. Conditions under which information provided are also important, should also be there. The comprehension, that means they should be able to understand what is written in the informed consent. The adapt representation of information to the subject's capacity, that means we have to explain to them in their capacity. We have to explain to them in their vernacular language. Investigators must ascertain the comprehension that the subject has understood the information which has provided to them, and special provisions for immaturity and mental disability should be considered. And there should be voluntariness. There must be no coercion or undue influence to participate in the trial. So what must a subject know in treatment? The trial treatments. That the treatments, it can be either investigational product or a placebo, or investigational product and an active comparator, meaning a drug which was already in use, and investigational product in different doses. So these are the treatment options available that you have to explain to the subjects. And probability for random assignment of treatment. You have to explain to the participant that there is probability of random assignment to any of the treatment groups, either by flipping of a coin, by or drawing a card, and what chance that a subject will be assigned to a particular treatment. It will be of equal chance. It may be in the investigational product or a placebo or any other, depending on the study protocol. So there are many ethical guidelines for biomedical research on human subjects, and all institutions in the country which carry out any form of biomedical research involving human subjects should follow these guidelines. And it is mandatory that all proposals or biomedical research involving human subjects should be cleared by an appropriately constituted institutional ethics committee. So all trials have to be cleared by the institutional ethics committee. There are other guidelines by the WHO. The type of research can be clinical trials which are sponsored by pharma companies, clinical trials which are non-sponsored, for example, clinical trials conducted in an institute, maybe academic trials also. It can be basic research, it can be task force trials or epidemiological studies. Task force trials like supplementation of iron in pregnant, it can be a task force study by ICMR, or certain epidemiological studies. So these are in broad the general types of studies. So the types of IRBs, or institutional review boards or ethics committee, for human research in India, it can be in government institutions or some the private hospitals. They also have their own ethics committee. Standalone private practitioners, they have independent ethics committee, and even they can follow ethics committee by ICMR or any other institute. So coming to briefly about the AIIMS ethics committee, which also follows ICMR guidelines. The SOP for ethics committee is there on the ICMR on the AIIMS website. We have the composition and the quorum, the frequency of meeting is there, the review procedures, the meetings, which all proposals are exempt from review. When can you go for an expedited review, and administration and management of ERBs, and then frequent monitoring of the proposal. So what is the composition of the ethics committee? There is a chairperson outside the institute, a lay person from the community, social scientist or representative of non-government voluntary agency. There should be a legal expert or a retired judge. 2 ladies are normally there in the ethics committee, 1 to 2 basic medical scientists including a pharmacologist, ethicists, philosophers, theologians, 1 to 2 clinicians, and of course the member secretary which coordinates all the meetings and all, which is from the institute. So in our institute, the frequency of meeting is monthly or 15 days or 2 monthly and 3 monthly, but in AIIMS we have 1 meeting every month to have a turnaround time of not more than 6 weeks, and all projects are submitted till 15th of each month, and all meetings held on first Monday. So this is normally what is happening in our AIIMS. They review all research proposals on human subjects, new research proposal and amendments sent to each member 15 days in advance, and formal meetings and not circulation of proposals are there, and all meetings are minuted. So what all there should be there when you submit a proposal for ethics committee approval: the full title, the investigators and the number of projects, the objectives, the justification for the conduct, the methodology including the number of patients, inclusion exclusion criteria, study design, dosages and duration of drug treatment, investigations which will be involved in the study, and controls or placebo. All this should be mentioned. And safety measures for the proposed intervention should also be mentioned, and results of relevant laboratory tests and studies in humans, if so available, should be included in the proposal. And maintenance, how to maintain confidentiality, and plans to withdraw standard therapy during conduct of research, and provision of cover of medical risks should all be there in the proposal. Who will bear the cost of investigation or the implants or the drug or contrast? Are there any conflict of interest for any investigators? In case of drug trial, the chemical name of the drug should be there, the batch number, the bioequivalent studies have been conducted for the drug or not, and self-certification that translation to vernacular language is adequate. Like whenever you give the informed consent and the patient information sheet, there should be translation to a vernacular language, but mostly Hindi here. So, and there should be the translation so that the translation is adequate. Statement that work on the progress has not been started, so no work can be initiated before you obtain ethics committee approval, whether it's human research or animal research, and patient information should contain both in English as well as vernacular language. So these are things which should be there in the patient information sheet: the aims and methods, the expected duration of the participation, the benefits to be expected from the research, the risks associated with the study, and maintenance of confidentiality, and the provision of free treatment for research related injury, and if the compensation for disability or death resulting from the injury. If there is an injury during the participant because of the study, then you have to have an information about the compensation, and freedom of individual to participate and to withdraw from the research at any time point without penalty or loss of benefit to which the subject would otherwise be entitled. Suppose a patient was on some treatment and he wants to withdraw, he will still be given the treatment till the trial is completed. So this is a normal participant information sheet, which we have the title of the study, name of the investigator, the place of the study, AIIMS and everything. So I have already told you about the consent process. It should be in the vernacular language, Healthy acceptable representative should be there, legally acceptable representative, and witness should be there in case of illiterate persons, and confidentiality issues should be taken into consideration. And we have to take SN in case of all the children, that is 7 to 12 years. The degree of understanding, that means how much the potential participant has understood, should be taken into consideration. The lack of familiarity with the clinical trial process, because we are familiar, but a participant has never participated and they are not familiar with the trial process. A lack of experience with the informed consent, and all risks of exploitation should be understood. And what is motivation to participate? Like therapeutic misconceptions should not be brought into the mind of the participants. Only chance of getting treatment. Sometimes they think that if you participate, this is the only chance of getting a good treatment and better care. And implication of the trials, risks and benefits should be explained to the trial participants. So the committee, the ethics committee opinion can be approval. You can get an approval from the ethics committee. It can be disapproval. That means the study is not approved. There will be reasons. Modification may be sought before approval, or discontinuation of previously approved project. Sometimes there can be, if it was approved initially, they can also discontinue to the approval, and there can be certain Drugs Control General of India queries. For example, for certain drugs we may take approval. We may need to take approval from the DCGI, which is Drugs Control General of India. The committee expects from the investigators a 6 monthly progress report, a report of each serious event. So any serious adverse event occurring, we have to report immediately to the ethics committee, and to keep informed of the amendments. If you are changing the protocol, any time in between you have to inform the ethics committee, and to keep informed of study discontinuation with reason. Suppose I as an investigator decide to discontinue the study because of certain issues, then even if I have discontinued the study, we have to inform the ethics committee with the reasons of the discontinuation. So this was in general about the ethics committee, the role of ethics in research, how ethics came into being because of the unethical trials which was conducted in the Nazi prisoners, and the Tuskegee syphilis trial. We have to undergo all the research as per the good clinical practice guidelines. So this was about the ethics committee, the role of ethics in humans and animal research. And in animals we have to follow the principles of 4 Rs. Thank you very much.
मिनिमाइज इसको भी मिनिमाइज। ठीक,
तो बच्चे कहाँ है?
सो रहे होंगे।
कोई भी बच्चे आए नहीं?
किसी ने लॉगिन नहीं किया।
लॉगिन नहीं किया? ओह माय गॉड।
अब ये एग्जाम चल रहे हैं ना, ये थर्ड सेम का से शायद।
अरे फिर मैं ऐसे ही पकड़ कर रही हूँ।
क्या करें अब? तभी तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, अभी मैम को बात कर देना।
कौन सी मैडम?
बॉस।
अच्छा,
मैं वो जूम पे अगर डिपार्टमेंट,
अरे मैडम से बात नहीं करूँगी। उनसे बात करने लायक थोड़ी ना।
डिपार्टमेंटली अगर लैपटॉप है ना, तो जिम पे करा आपका इंटरेक्शन होगा पूरा, पता चलेगा।
ये तो क्या फायदा होगा?
बताइए।
हाँ। थैंक यू।
चलो, सॉरी मैम आपको।
कोई बात नहीं।
तो क्या करें?
बच्चे लॉगिन करते हैं तो फिर ये लोग बोलते हैं ना कि मैडम तो ले आई, वो भी अच्छी है। नहीं, कोई बात नहीं।